Hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner on YouTube. My name's Angela, and I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I hope you stick with it to the end of the video. It's Tuesday, and Tuesdays from now on, henceforth by me, until I make a change, which may be soon, it may be a long time, it may be never, are Tangle Tuesdays, where I'm going to tangle and tackle some of my favourite tangle patterns or repeating patterns that I tend to use a lot or don't use as often as perhaps I ought to. So I hope you'll find that interesting. There may be variations, there may be suggestions on how to use it. It may just be a simple tutorial. We'll see how it goes, but it's Tangle Tuesday. And can I just say here, thank you very much to everybody who's subscribed, who's left a lovely comment, who's liked my videos and shared them with others who would like them. If you haven't subscribed, then please consider doing so. I release videos previously about every day of the week. Going forward, I think it's going to be 4 or 5 days a week. I'll see how it goes, each day with a different theme, so watch out for it. And it'd be lovely to have you joining along, it really would. So with no further ado, on a rather grey, damp and it feels very chilly morning because there is no sun, it's damp, we've got high winds and heavy rain at the moment. So I need some cheering up. I think we all do. It's that time of year where we're not in spring, winter is just behind us. We still get cold days and crazy weather, and it's, yeah, not enough sunshine to lift my mood sometimes. So for some reason, I've chosen a favourite pattern of mine that is called Sandswirl, and it's by Karry Heun. Heun. Yep, that's what I've written up there. It looks like 2 U's though. And it is lovely. It's more of a filler pattern than a repeated pattern, but it's still a pattern. And I find that I use it to fill spaces in a couple of different ways. And this is drawn here for a reason as well. So if I start here, the first way to do this is to draw these kinds of shapes. So a long letter 9, and sometimes 6s, or we can do them opposing, and to draw them from the edges of a space. I've drawn a box, but it could be any shape of space. I would suggest though that you need fairly largish spaces for this to work nicely, unless you're prepared to draw very titchily. So I feel I've got enough here. And then what I do is I start with one and you aura around it. So you start underneath where that curl joins and around like this. You can do it the other way, but I find this is the best way to get a consistent line, or size of this space between the 2 lines. Not that that will matter too much. This is one of my favourites. We've got almost spirals here. I say almost spirals. They're not quite, but they're getting there. So I'll start where I began, first one. I just find it easier then to make sure that I'm going around. And now we're going to begin to get some overlapping. And you overlap as you go around. I like to do this in a fairly orderly fashion like this. But eventually we'll get discrete spaces where we can focus on the individual spaces. gosh, what I've got going through my head is a song from the 80s, 90s, I think. Might be a bit later than that. Called Sandstorm by Artwyrd. Trance, dance, something like that. Oh, I've done that one a bit wrong. It's okay, because it will work its way through eventually. They tend to. I will just pop it in there, because that little mistake will get buried in the crazy mass of mistakes that are going on. Right, so apart from this one here, which I will just pop in now, I think I've got to pop one in there and one there. Then I'm going to focus on these individual spaces, and I'm going to pay attention to how they overlap. So this one seems to be on top of, this line here seems to be on top of this one, so this is the next line. Then this one, and this one, and there's enough space to pop that little bit in, and so on, like that. And we can do this in all of the sections, so yeah, so this one needs to go in next, then this one, and this one, and so on, until we filled the space. And you get these lovely sculptural kinds of patterns going on. So this one is the outside, so that one. I say the outside, I mean the last one to be drawn, really. And here, I think this was the last one to be drawn. So I think I'll go up to this one, and let's do this space. It really doesn't make much of a difference, to be honest, how you do this, because nobody's going to come along, no Tangle police out there to come out and tell you off, you haven't done this quite right. So I think everybody finds their own way of drawing designs and patterns. So that one's complete. This one will just, that's it, we'll take that one round, then this one, that one, this one, and then that one, little one there, and these will just keep on going. I haven't done a very good job, but I find that really interesting. It gives an awful lot of volume going on. Now, I've done this by working from all the sides out, but I sometimes do this as a kind of pattern that I fill in from the bottom up. Oh, if you get a big space in here and you just be repeating these never-endingly, you can always pop some more in there. It's akin to what I'm going to be doing here, but instead of working in layers on the page, you know, in a section, the layers work in a circle. So when you've completed the outer layer, then you go to the next one. My head has got that in it now, so we may give this a go and see what happens. It's the same kind of thing. I'm just going to keep on going, perhaps start with this one and this one until I get these really seriously overlapping, I guess, which I'm getting here. What I really want to do is close this space here. There. So under these I can carry on doing what I want to do, but I'll come back to those gaps at the bottom afterwards, because I want to add some more of these in, like so. I mean, I've put another 3 in, but you can put as many of these in as you like. It depends how fine you want to draw the pattern. I tend to draw a lot bigger and chunkier than perhaps you would on Zentangle tiles, because I tend to use much bigger paper. This that I'm working on is an A5 piece of Canson Imagine, and I haven't added any distress ink to it at all. Today is just one of those days where I'm just going to draw. So I've got that one. Oh, that was a bit of a wobbly line, but it'll be fine. And then this will most probably be the last of the layers, and I am going to pop 4 in because we've got a smaller space to work with here. Gosh, there's stuff being blown over out there. Just hears a big crash with something, and it's at a distance. Definitely a day to be at home and snuggled up in the dry. My car's got to go to the garage next week. I booked the appointment well over a month ago, and it was probably the best part 2 months ago. I got a bit of a leak somewhere, and it is annoying me just a little bit, to say the least. But I'm just hoping that next week the weather will be fine on the day that I go, because I'll be having a loan car, and I dislike loan cars, especially when they give me ones that I refer to as being the size and build of a tank. So it goes to a Mercedes dealership. It's my smart car, and they never have smart cars to loan out. It's only ever Mercedes. I think they're hoping I'm going to buy one, and I keep going, not a chance, they're way too big. Mercedes smart cars are my size. I love them. It's the lack of confidence in driving something that's a lot bigger than my little car. So anyway, what I did here was to pop a little one in here, and I'm going to do that in some of these other places that are quite big. Because although I know I've popped it in, nobody else will ever know that it wasn't meant to be here. And the same here, so I can start to add some other patterns in, perhaps like this, using these as the guide to fill them in. And so it's just a different way of creating the same kind of pattern, but I think you do get a different feel on it at the end. I know why you get a different feel generally. It's because these little swirls that we're doing are basically growing in the same direction. Here they're growing in all random directions. I'll do that. And then with these ones, I think I will just finish them in this kind of fashion. So there we are. Sandswirls in 2 ways, working from the outside in and working from one side. You could work from a corner, I suppose. And to have everything growing out from that corner, which would be quite fun actually, as I think about it. And here I'm going to draw the swirls with 3, 4 swirls around, and then I can join another one on, do 4 swirls around. So essentially I'm joining them one to another one, and just seeing what happens to them really. I may not get 4 swirls in here. I guess that the number of times you go around isn't really something that is critical. Eventually we'll fill any gaps in anyway. Perhaps I should just do them until their first overlap, proper overlap. So with this one we're giving a different kind of direction. These are all pointing towards the centre, sort of. These ones are all growing upwards, and these are going from corner to corner but spreading out at the same time. I'll pop another one in there, even though I've got a different number of. So we need one that can go in here. Now the sirens of the emergency services are sounding, which could be something, it could be nothing. Unlikely to be nothing. Yesterday evening, I got around to watching the last, well, I say the last few episodes. I think I'd seen mostly the first 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. And I'm terrible. I tend to put off watching things that I know I'm going to enjoy, because when they've come to the end, I don't have them to look forward to, or it's an ending. I don't do well with endings. I never have done. But I have to say, even though there are many critics who didn't enjoy the ending, perhaps it's because I don't know the backstory of some of the characters that appeared in there, particularly the bounty hunter that was particularly like a Wild West kind of character. Don't know his name, but I have seen him in some of the Clone Wars, which I still haven't watched all of. I tend to get very engrossed in such things and forget that I may have other things that need to be done, which is fine most days. You'll get there. So I was really enjoyed that. I'm now looking forward to The Mandalorian, and of course Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan series that's coming up. So yeah, I love Star Wars, and I unashamedly have enjoyed every film for what it is. I get irritated with some bits, but you know, I enjoy the story. So that bit of a wander. I've put this here because I think we can use this idea of Sandswirls as a kind of border as well. So I'm going to pop some of these shapes along the outside of the arch. I'm not sure if I'll have one peeking in here, we'll see now. And for this one I am going to pop these in like that. Perhaps I will have one there, and perhaps have one growing in from outside. So it's almost like it's joined the arch off the area we're looking at. And just start in the same way as we have done previously. I have. This one here, I'm trying to work out, if I put a line in, I'm enclosing it. So I'll do that underneath and give it a distinct space to grow in, whereas this one I'll just let it become quite organic in nature, I think. And there will be spaces like this that we can just fill with pattern, I think. That works. That'll work. That one will. So that would create an interesting border or an edge, and I'd be very tempted to aura it and use that as almost like a torn piece of paper, so we're looking perhaps down into what's underneath the edge, and that can be enhanced by the use of shadow. I'll come back to that. So I did a double aura there. This one where I've smudged it, I'm thinking that I could create a border that fills just this shape up here. I think I'm going to put quite a lot more in to this one just to see what happens. So I'm going to start this side. You might notice that I haven't made the ends precisely round on these ones. I've given them a slightly different shape, because that is possible as well. I'll give you some ideas for different shapes in a moment. Things that we can play with there. Sounds like something else has been blown over, or perhaps it's the same thing being blown along. You're going to get updates on this because I can get spooked by big noises, so that means that today while I'm working I'll end up having quite loud music on, I would imagine, or, well, I'm listening to the Half-Blood Prince, the Harry Potter book. So I'm a bit of a fan of Harry Potter books. I really enjoy the stories. I know people tear them apart at times with things like political correctness and so on, and various controversies that seem to go on, but I enjoy a good story. It's hard to think that the first book is over 20 years old, and the very first film is as well. Oops, that one will be next, and then this one. Let's just fill these in like so. This one is next, and then that one. And there we are. So you can fill in distinct spaces. I quite like filling them in this way. Of course, we could do them. Let's draw a border here. Onto the border without those patterns there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start a little bit in, not in the middle, but off to one side. I'm going to draw the first one in. I'm going to start to create the sandswirl, and then I'm going to add the next one, perhaps add one to that, and then go back and add this. So I've never done this before, but it could be fun. Okay, I'll do that, and then again adding one this way. And I think I will just keep on going. Actually, yes, this is how I'll do it. Let's do this. Instead of trying to overlap initially, is perhaps do the same number of, well, I haven't. Yeah, I have 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 of the repeats round on each one. and then we can come back and fill the spaces in. Which would be fun. Okay, so we've got these spaces to fill in, and I think it's going to be a case of working out which ones the lines go around, like this. This one will just fill this space up all on its own. So we have the lines that we draw in, the pattern lines. So they'll create different kinds of shapes and spaces here. So this is one of the lines that we would draw in. That one, that one, that one. So that's a different way of filling a border in, and it's zigzagging them along. Who'd have thought? I never thought I'd have as many of these as I've come up with here this morning. Okay, another way. Let's fill this in. 1, 2, 3 circles round, and then let's do this one the same, but it's going to overlap. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this one's much more controlled, less random, but we're using the same kind of shape here, which actually suits me just fine. Just pop that one in there, that region, and I think we'd have some perhaps going there. But we can finish these off by doing these repeats as we have done before. So if I show here, we'd have this, and then this is one of the lines we draw in. This first one, you never echo along it. So there, 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 and this one would be there. Perhaps there'll be one there. We can just fill that in with the same kind of pattern, so it becomes quite structured. Again, it's what you feel you need at a particular time. And let's go for, oops, I wanted to do it this way. These look almost like musical notes. They're not though. So if I put them like this, then we can and where they start to overlap, just overlap them. It's fine, because we want them to overlap to create the both the textural pattern but the sense of volume as well. Gets a bit more complicated to do the overlaps as we go along, but you just follow around a particular shape that you are working on, and it all follows itself around and works out. So this one, that'll be the last one for this one. Then there's this shape here, so we need that one there. And then we can just finish this section off, and this one too. Here we can do this one. I get like this where I, instead of doing the whole shape, once I get to these sections where I can just fill in with this kind of weaving. It's very much like a rush pattern. There we are. So that is very structured. And I suppose we could do one, you know, sort of like, I don't know, diagonally as well. So if I give you an example of just the starting perhaps to, okay, if I go that way and then I can come back this way. So I'm having them coming back on each other, but we could have them with the shapes going in the same, you know, the blobs on the end, the circles on the end pointing in the same direction. So like this. So if I just do a couple of these ones that are opposing, we'll get a sense for how that appears. I think I might actually do this one, to be honest. And then just go back to this one. And then I can see that this is a section I can just fill in as that one, and then this one. This one will be one of the ones I can fill in because there's no open gap. This one then, like that. And I'll leave this one in the middle just to mark the space. But I suspect we're going to get something that looks a little different. But isn't all that different, I don't know. It's hard to work out, isn't it? Well, it is when you're me. So this one will carry on now. This one needs perhaps another, there, that one's done. And then this one will just fill in like that. So yes, they do have very different kinds of feels. These ones, the weavings are much straighter, less diagonal and so on. So lots of possibilities of how you can arrange these. Another way is to actually grow these in a very organic kind of manner. So for this one, I'm going to start the swirls at the base. So they've got that feeling that they're almost a leaf or a curled something. And then I can create others in a similar kind of way. Perhaps the smaller ones, I won't do as many repeats around. But we can grow them, as I said, in a very organic kind of way. So mine's growing in almost a bushy way, but you could grow them almost in a vine-like way as well. So let's have a look and see if I can do them in a vine-like way. I think I'll start here and do and then perhaps have another going here. So this would work quite nicely. In fact, I quite like this one. And there's nothing to stop us putting little embellishments in the gaps and so on. Which could be mini sandswirls, if you like. So there's a bunch of variations on that theme. I said that I would give you an option here, or some options for the shapes of these sandswirls, because we've got circular ones. We can have ones that are perhaps more triangular in shape. This one is. Perhaps ones that are more bulbous. And straight up, you do them just the same. You just follow around. There's a heart-shaped one. That one will get interesting as you add the auras. So that will create that feeling of like there's a fold there. Okay, we can have ones that are more teardrop shaped, hanging down. Changing the size is also an option of them. So we could go for something that's very small and use very tight auras. Or we could go for something that's much larger, like so. And if you use tight auras with this, it will give you a different feel to looser ones. But having this nice big space here gives you that option of adding something in the middle. So bear that in mind. Not sure I would do any other shapes, perhaps a distinctly kind of leaf shape would be quite nice. I don't know how much of a difference they would make to various parts of these, but the only way to find out is to actually do. Okay, don't really want that one. Let me have a look here. I'm picking up colours without really looking at them. As I'm peering over my top of my glasses, because that's what I do. I don't want that colour. Absolutely hate it when I can't find my favourite colours easily. This is what you call not being prepared. Oh, there we go. There's my favourite one. Well, one of my favourites. No, it's not. It's too blue, but we'll work with it. Where would I put shadows on these? And the most obvious place is where these cross over, I think. And perhaps a little bit under that area. This is a mucky paper stamp, it'll be fine. So we've got that one. Yeah, perhaps going from these. Yeah, I think that's what I do. Rather than try and get all of the crossings over, is perhaps just start by doing these. Where they... You can see what I mean. Adding that shadow where, starting from where the initial curl round ends and just following underneath there and just perhaps popping in the shadow this way. Any other shadows then you'll see, I think we'll see where they need to be long as we go along. Put some here. So that one caught these overlapped areas. But even with that little bit, it starts to bring out that feeling that some things are raised up and some things are settled down, doesn't it? So that already is starting to make things look rather dimensional. And I think that's the way mostly to go, to be honest. I think that is the method that makes the most sense. And perhaps putting some around that curl there. So I think mostly the shadow will end up going across some of these overlapping areas as well. So let me just add some there. And where you've got a big area, you can actually add more colour or more of the shadow. Spread it down. So that contrasts quite nicely. I'll do the one next door as well. So that will start to work out. And I think it's the same all the way along. It's just logically thinking about where you would like the shadow and the highlights. It's where these all tuck underneath. I think that's where the shadow should be. So this is working from a very logical kind of approach, rather than the sort of approach that you would have if you were considering light sources. So the shadows become part of the pattern rather than anything else. Though sometimes that irks me because I do like to work with light sources. Let me just add some more in this one. So let's have a look. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I wonder if it's a Tangle pattern you've not come across before. I know I've used it a lot and I seem to have known about it for more than, a couple of years, but maybe don't use it as much as I would like to. And I will consider that going forward. Now, it's bound to appear in some drawing work that I'm doing at the moment. The other thing is to look at where we'll have bits that would be naturally deeper and perhaps adding some more shadow there, where there are overlaps we haven't considered or done anything with yet. So yeah, so these areas I think would need it. Perhaps that one here because it's tucked underneath. I think that's the key, is looking at where things are tucked underneath. That keeps things quite simple. And you've got that option then, to work with things. So we've created these really as being on top, but where they overlap, where different parts are tucked one under the other, I think that's where the shadows are needed, like this. I'm going to apologise for the sound of this on the paper. And that's created something that is really quite dimensional. I will add that there and a bit there, perhaps a little bit there, down here. It's quite a lovely pattern, really. And that surprised me as to how dimensional that has become. So I'm not going to do them all because I could be here for a month of Sundays, and nobody wants that. So I hope, as I've said, I hope you found this one a nice tangle to use. It is one of my favourites, even though I haven't used it recently. And yeah, so thank you for joining me. If you do use this in your work and you show your work on social media, please tag me in it so I can see it. I'd love to see. I genuinely would, because I love to see how people make use of things, or how they interpret things their own way, and how they put things together. I know I'm not a traditional or a Zentangle artist in the sense of working on small tiles and things like that, but I do love pattern and I do love shape, and I like some of the ideas that come with Zentangle about that simplicity, the stylization, the things that are patterns rather than meant to be realistic looking. I think they use the word non-representational, and I quite like that, says she who spends an awful lot of time drawing flowers and other things, but they're very stylized generally. Not that I can't draw things that aren't stylized. It's a different story entirely. So take care of yourselves. If it's grey and wet and cold and windy where you are, keep warm. If you're somewhere it's hot, keep cool. If you're somewhere where it's a comfortable temperature, then enjoy it. And I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye.